Hello, class. This week, we're going to take a look at a really fun tool called the Bone Tool. And the Bone Tool in Animate is used to connect what are called armatures together. So, an armature, if you want to picture possibly the human body, we are made up of many armatures that kind of keep us all together and act as parts of the body. So, for instance, our arm, we have an upper arm, an elbow, a lower arm, and a wrist, and a hand. These are all examples of armatures within Animate. And we can use the Bone Tool to connect them all and create a very realistic looking motion tween with this tool. So, but it takes a little getting used to, and it's not the most, at first it may not be the most user-friendly tool. So I definitely recommend you practicing it because there are a few little things that may frustrate you. So I am going to try and point those out, and we'll take our time with this, and you can always watch this video over again. So let's look at a finished product here. Where are we? There we go. So here's a finished example of our mime in motion. I just want to point out how smooth this animation looks. And the Bone Tool really helps it look smooth and realistic. And look how the leg and the arms and the body, everything, and the neck, the head, everything's moving in a very natural way. And the Bone Tool is the reason for this. It would be very difficult to create a motion tween without the Bone Tool that ends up looking like this. It would take a ton of time. So, just like a lot of things in Animate, the prep is the most important part. So it's going to take us a bit of time to put this mime together with the Bone Tool. But once the mime is together, it's very easy from there to create a realistic motion. So our beginning view is like this. Here are all the parts broken out. Now, I do want to point to the fact that if you are creating a character for your midterm project where you want a character that looks like this and moves like this, you need to create all the separate armatures. You can't just draw your character on a single layer in Animate and think you can move it. You need to draw all the individual parts. So we're going to, we'll look at some examples that are simpler than this. This is complex. I would say this is complex. And there are easier methods for drawing your characters that don't have so many parts to it, but still look good. So we'll be looking at it, a couple more examples that are maybe a bit simpler. But this is a great exercise to get us used to the Bone Tool because there are so many armatures. Okay, so your start file looks like this. And if you look in your library, it's very messy. It's got lots of different parts, lots of different graphic symbols. Okay, if you look along your toolbar, chances are you do not see the Bone Tool. The Bone Tool looks like a bone. So I don't see that along the left side here. So we've had to do this before where we seem to be missing a tool. You click on these three dots, the bottom of your toolbar, and it opens up, it shows you more tools that are available. So here is the tool that we need. It's called the bone tool, and I'm going to bring it in here and put it above my eraser tool. And I'm going to drop the bind tool as well on top of the bone tool. But I'm going to make sure the bone tool is selected by pressing the button for a long hold, then selecting bone tool. Okay, I hope that's clear for everyone. My toolbar is really filling up right now. And in fact, what I might do is drop my oval tool onto the rectangle tool. Okay. There we go. All right, so we've got our bone tool now. The first thing we need to do is turn on our selection tool and put all of the parts together for our mime. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. And I'm just going to leave the legs and feet where they are. Maybe I'll lower them, actually. Oh, so the layer that everything exists on is in a layer called Exploded View. You want to unlock that. I'm just going to lower everything here a little bit. And here's our knee. Another thing we want to do is disable snapping. So let's go Edit. Where are you? Sorry, View, not Edit. Go to View, Snapping, and let's disable all snapping. So you can do that by turning on your Edit Snapping dialog box, and we're going to just turn it all off and hit OK. That way we can really place everything easily. Now don't worry if the layering seems to be a little off, like our waist here seems to be behind the legs. That's okay. We're going to be changing that as we build our character. So let's just get everything into position first. And you can use mine as a final example of how it should look. And, you know, I'm not being totally exact here. Something like that. Let me zoom out. Ooh. I guess the arm needs to be connected. Okay. Something like that. Okay. So now we get to start using our bone tool. And when using the bone tool, what you're essentially doing is connecting all those exploded parts together and creating essentially bones. So look at it like that. So we've got all these bones in our own body connecting and helping form the different armatures and different limbs and parts of our body. And everything must connect. Now, when building a character like this with the bone tool, we want to start in a central place. And the central place for us is the upper chest, this area right here. And we're going to draw our first bone from that upper chest area down to our first part, which is the hip here. So all you do is you click and hold at this upper chest, And you'll start seeing, oh, interesting. Let's just pause here and see what's happening. First of all, we get this icon right here at the chest circle. So we'll look at what that does in a second. Second of all, we see a blue binding box around this graphic, which is our upper body graphic. And it also includes the neck. That's why it goes up so high. And also take a look at the bone pointer icon. It has a no bone. It's telling me I cannot connect a bone armature within itself. So right now I'm within my icon, or my pointers within the upper body still. And look what happens when I finally meet the hip. That no bone tool pointer disappears, and it is telling me I'm good to drop a bone right here. So I'm going to drop it right in the middle of the hip. And look what happens. We see this bone. So that's what this is, this purple line here. I'm going to zoom in a bit. This purple line connecting to our hip. Okay, awesome. Now let's move on to our next one. And we're just going to move on down from the hip. Let's start with this left leg here. So the way we draw our next armature is we click and hold over top of this joining point right here. And we're going to go to the top of the leg. Right here. And look what happens. So now we're seeing a bounding box around the next part. And remember, the next part after the upper leg is the knee. So I'm going to click and hold. It's saying no, no, no. Now I can drop it on the knee. Okay. Now it goes from the knee to the upper lower leg right here. Then it goes from the upper lower leg down to the our foot, which is also our ankle. So I'm going to just go down to around here, kind of the lower ankle towards the heel. I guess it would be the heel. Okay, and we're going to stop there for that leg. Now we're going to do the same for the right leg. Follow the exact same steps. We're going to go from the hip to the top of the upper leg, then down to the knee, then to the top of the lower leg, then down to our heel. Awesome. Let's just keep connecting all these parts. Don't panic when you see something like this with the head behind the neck. We are going to fix that after we've made all the connections here. Okay, let's start with the lower, or the left arm here. So now I'm going to start back up at the upper chest and connect this arm at the shoulder. So I'm going over. Now I see I can connect it. And remember, I have an elbow. So I'm going to go down to the elbow, then to the top of the lower arm right here, then to the hand, the wrist. And we'll stop there. And we'll move on to the other arm. Going here, connecting at the shoulder, then the elbow, then the upper lower arm, then to the wrist. And now all that's left is connecting the head to the neck. So we're going to start at this central point again and connect maybe around there, kind of the middle of the chin. I think the instructions tell you go a little bit higher, but that's okay. So look at this. That wasn't too hard. We've got our mime all connected. Switch to your selection tool. Now, I'm just going to demo this first, what is going on here. So, check this out. If I grab the hand, whoa, look at that. But look what happens. Some impossible things start happening. The arm kind of flies off, becomes disconnected. The hand is totally twisted. This is not realistic at all. Okay, so I'm going to hit undo. There's a few things that we need to do within the settings of all these adjoining points. These joints. So if you click on one of these joints, look at your properties. First of all, there's a couple things. Each bone has a name. This is very handy. Also, you can navigate through all the bones with this arrow here. And they call them siblings. So what is the next sibling of this bone? Let me zoom out a bit. The next sibling goes to up here. These are all siblings because they're connected to this main central point. And then the downward arrow is a child. So where does this child go to? So this will come in handy because sometimes it becomes difficult to select the joints because they might be too close together. All right. So what we want to do next is constrain or stop the movement of these armatures. So for example, this arm, if I were to go like this is not good. We kind of want to stop the movement of this armature, and just because of through my experience, we want to actually stop all the movement of all these armatures that connect to this central point. So select the central point, and then you'll see in the properties here, joint rotation, and there's a little switch here. It's currently on, and we can turn it off. So that means now when I grab this, it does not move anymore. That's a really important thing that you need to do, is turn that off. Now, if I were to select armatures that were children of these armatures, like this arm, for instance, rotation is still on, which is what we want. Okay, so let's just move down the line here, and we're going to now set some constraining settings on all these armatures. So let's start with the arm because it is right here. All right, so if I were to grab this arm and do all this, we don't want all this business to happen. So let's go one by one. So right now, I kind of only want the arm to be able to go up this high because that's realistic. You know, not many arms can do this. So we want to constrain how far the arm can move and maybe stop here. So we want it kind of going from here to here. So I'm going to select this armature, and notice how this joint is also green, which means it's the joint that I am constraining. Look to your joint rotation in properties and hit constrain. Now it gives you a default 90 degrees total. So it gives you a left offset and a right offset. And that is, if I were to zoom here, see this little pie here? This green pie? That's what that represents. So you notice how it's 90 degrees total. So it's going negative 45 and plus 45 either way. Let's see if that by default works for us. I think we want to change it a little bit. We want the arm to go higher and also not as low. Okay, so you select the armature, and the left offset we want to bring maybe to a negative, let's see, negative 50. Let's see how far that arm goes. Maybe a bit more. And then the right offset maybe goes a little too far. We want it kind of ending there. Okay. So you need to go through each of these and turn that on. So I'm going to select the next armature, turn on constrain. And this is an area here that you might have trouble selecting the armature. So a good idea is to select the previous armature and then hit next child. And basically you can go through all your armatures and turn on constrain. And you can experiment a bit like what I'm doing, maybe turning off rotation on maybe the elbow. See if that looks better. It might not. Okay, so you want to go through all of your armatures and do this. Okay, so I'm just going to go through each one and turn on constraining. And again, you can click the next child button and just turn on constraining. And the default values look okay. Now you'll want to go through and fine tune it. But just for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to go through right now and just turn on everything. Now you may notice that the wrist appears to be broken still. That's okay for now. We're going to fix that in a second. So I'm just going to continue moving through here and turning on constraining, navigating through all the children. And that might have been, oh, almost. Okay. All right, so now let's deal with the armatures that are kind of at the end of each part of the body. So we have 2 hands, 2 feet, and even our head. Right now, we'll do this, which we don't want. So what we need to do is create a ghost symbol that will act as another armature, but it will be an invisible graphic. Okay, so let's do that first. Let's create a new symbol. Choose Insert, New Symbol, and we'll call it Ghost. And choose your oval tool. And you can choose any color. I'm going to just turn to red so it's more visible. And you can turn off the stroke. And I'm just going to hold down Shift and draw a red circle in the middle of the stage. Next, with your selection tool, select the circle and center it to the stage. Okay, now let's go back to the main timeline. And again, how do I do that? I click on this arrow that takes me out of the ghost symbol back to scene 1. All right, so let's look at our feet first, because right now our feet can do this. So from your library, look for your ghost symbol, and let's drag an instance of it to here. Oh, we need to actually create a new layer for our ghost symbol first. So click on New Layer. This layer will be temporary, so you don't really have to name it. We'll delete it when we're done with it. Drag an instance of Ghost to the stage. I think I made mine a little too big, but that's okay. It's going to become invisible soon. Now let's turn on the bone tool again. And you just have to click once on the foot to reveal the bones again. And I'm going to draw another armature from the heel to meet our red dot here. Now, just to demonstrate what this does for us, now we're allowed to constrain the motion of our ankle. So select this armature now and turn on constrain, and you'll see that can only go so far. That's the point of this ghost symbol. Now you may be asking, well, that doesn't look so good. We have this big red dot now at the end of all our body parts. Well, we're going to end up deleting the graphic but leaving the symbol. Okay, we'll do that shortly. So let's just finish off. I'm going to open up my library, drag another instance of the ghost symbol, but we have to select that blank layer here first, because we can't place new symbols on an armature layer. And just place it here. Turn on my bone tool. Select the foot, draw an armature from the ankle to the red dot. Okay, let's just keep going. We need to do it to our 2 hands and the top of our head. Select that blank layer, drag an instance. In fact, while we're here, we might as well drag instances to the 3 remaining spots. Okay. And now select, with your bone tool on, select the hand, then draw an armature from the wrist to our new symbol. And we're going to do that to the other hand, and then we need to do that for our head. Now, with the selection tool, let's select each of those new armatures and turn on Constrain in the Properties panel. Constrain. The head we will want to constrain quite a bit because can our head move that far? No. So it's going to be very small, the motion here. So I'm going to decrease it quite a bit, maybe just 15 degrees on each side, or 10. Something like that. Very subtle motion. Okay. Did I do it for this one? Nope. Constrain. All right. So now we've got a mime with red dots at the end of each part. So what do? Well, we're going to edit our ghost symbol. So our ghost symbol, we're not going to delete the actual symbol from the stage. We're going to just delete the graphic that is this red dot. So double-click Ghost in your library and select the red dot and hit delete. But notice how the red dot disappears, but our actual symbol, the ghost symbol, still exists in the library. And there you can see kind of where the red dot was. But the red dot is no longer. So if I were to view this in a browser, you won't see the red dots. Okay, so how do we animate this? This is the fun part. So up until now, that was kind of the hard part. Now it's time to animate. By default, when we create an armature, we get this new layer called an armature layer, and you get this little symbol of a person in motion. Awesome. And by default, it turns into its own motion tween. So we can add some motion to our character quite easily by just moving our playhead to the next point where there needs to be some motion. So I'm going to move it to frame 10. And all I'm going to do is grab the arm here and move it down. Now notice what happens here. We get a motion tween keyframe. And when I move my playhead, look what happens. Now I'm going to move the playhead ahead a little bit more, move my character a bit more. I'm going to have our character's head kind of bop a little bit. And just keep moving. You're kind of shaping your character. So if I were to look at this character, look at that, how smooth that looks. Okay, so just going to move my playhead back to 0. One thing I haven't pointed out yet is my legs are kind of on top of my hips. So what you need to do is select your hip, right click on it, and go to Arrange and Bring to Front. And that places the hip on top. Is there anywhere else we need to do that? Maybe our knees. So right click on the knee, choose Arrange, Bring to Front. And that doesn't break anything. Now, I also noticed that our current FLA file is an ActionScript 3.0. Let's convert this to HTML and see what happens. So go File, convert to HTML5 canvas. It's going to ask you where to save it. And I'm going to save it in my working folder. And let's open it up. Cool. So that works. Now my character is moving a little, it's kind of jagged. So what I recommend is creating very long, subtle movements to make it look a little more realistic. All right, so that is the bone tool. Let me know if you have any questions. You definitely want to watch this video, as all of you are, because the instructions can only show so much. It really is, it's very important to kind of follow my voice and follow my verbal instructions. It will end up being easier. Okay.